Hello, welcome back to another live, another week where I say one of these days I'm going to have an intro, but we don't have an intro today. Just me saying hi. If you're new here, my name's Laken. I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to talk about goals, talk about life, and answer any questions that you have on your mind. So let's kick it off with our first question while we have everybody jump and join in, which is, what is one small win you have from the last week, really the last 2 weeks? We weren't together last week since I was out of town. So what is one small win that you have from the last 2 weeks? You know that here, small progress is still progress. And I want to hear about all of your wins. Even if you feel like it's not enough, I promise you it is enough. And I want to hear about it. So if you're here live, please say hello in the chat and let us know what your win is. And if you're a part of the replay fam, please leave them down in the comments. I'm a little behind on YouTube comments after being out of town. Anyone else feel like you're trying to play catch up? And I've talked about this before. I try to give myself a week from when I get back from being gone to get myself back into my rhythms and routines that I had before I left. And so that would be today. That's how long I was gone, was about a week. And so, but we had company immediately upon our return. So I feel like I'm giving myself a couple more days of wiggle room there. And so while I feel like a lot of my personal routines are kind of back in a groove, and some of my business stuff, YouTube comments is one of those things that I have not gotten to. So I will, but I promise to get to them. So while I wait for those comments to pop up, I'm going to tell you mine is that I prioritized rest. I sometimes have a hard time practicing what I tell you. What I suggest and what I recommend doesn't always mean that I do it myself perfectly. Like, I am also human. And one of the things that I have consistently talked about for the last number of years that I finally feel like I've started to understand is that every day our energy levels differ. And it varies based on so many factors. It could be the sleep you got the night before, what you ate the night before, the cycle that you're in, if you are, based on your hormones. There are just the weather, like there's so many little things that can impact your energy levels. And sometimes when I talk about like the spectrum, when I'm on the higher end of the spectrum, I will let myself feel guilty for not doing all of the things and not getting all the things done. And then when I'm on the lower end of the spectrum, sometimes I will push myself to the bottom and be like, well, I'm just going to do nothing. But sometimes I don't even let myself rest at all. And I'm like, I have to get these things done. And that's definitely, I played with that in my brain a little bit yesterday. And then finally I was like, you know what? I don't have the energy. So I'm going to rest. And I did it. And while Lila was napping, I didn't sleep, but I rested. And it was absolutely what I needed. And I just feel like for me, it was a win because I actually did what I recommend to you a lot of the times. So, all right, let's read the comments. Hello. I swam for 4 hours yesterday. Oh my God, that's amazing. We also had our first pool day too. I'm glad the weather is finally back. I wrote to the doctor to get a copy of a referral that was denied, and I need to try to be referred to another doctor. Holy moly. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but fingers crossed that it all gets sorted out. Caught up on your homework, started a book series, got home from having gastric sleeve weight loss surgery yesterday, sending you all the healing vibes, Debbie. Attended the live call and loved the new format and asked a question I was struggling with. I also loved the new format. If you haven't heard me talk about this, I've mentioned it in a couple of places, but we switched up the format of the community calls. And so far, I also feel really good about them. Brittany, I don't think anyone I know watches these. I found out that I'm pregnant. Congrats. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. I know for months you've been talking about like that next phase for you and your family. So oh my gosh, it just makes me so happy. I'm so excited for you. The video looks good and the sound is great. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know, Monique. I finally got like a blue light. So I finally feel like I figured out the lighting situation with our new angle, which I love. But I'm glad that like it all is coming through as well. I'm going to be honest with you, y'all. Sometimes the like whether the internet is doing well, I have no idea what is causing it. Like we have the same internet. Sam is working. Like when he's here and not here, like I don't even notice a difference. So I don't even know sometimes. Sometimes when the internet is slow, it is out of my control. 3 months sober and finally planted your outdoor garden. I love that. Congrats. Oh my God. Some of these wins, y'all, are just what a day, what a week. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's jump into my reading update, which isn't really much of an update. I'm still reading the same 3 books. I've made a little bit of progress. If you're like looking at the percentages, I've made slight progress on all of them, but nothing drastic. Haven't finished any. I'm reading How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind, like the physical book. I'm reading or listening to Becoming by Michelle Obama. And then I'm also reading / listening to A Court of Mist and Fury. I literally read them all yesterday and 2 of them so far today. So I am making progress. It's just slower. Let's be honest. This one and this one, these 2 books are incredibly long. So it might take me a while before I actually get to finish them. And truthfully, I don't think I finished a book in May. Like I think I was working maybe I finished 1 autobiography in May before I moved on to Becoming. But I didn't really make a whole lot of progress. And I'm still 7 books ahead of my goal on Goodreads. So, you know what? Again, going back to what I talked about at the beginning, which is I don't like the phrase practice what I preach because I don't like the phrase preach. I'm not preaching to you at all. So I need another phrase, but practicing what I teach, maybe that's the phrase I need. Progress is going to look different every month. And there have been some months where I finished lots of books and some months that I finished no books. And I'm still way ahead of my goal for the year. And that feels really good. So let me check back on the comments. Finally got some wedding pictures printed and up in your living room. I love that. And started on your friendship bracelets for the Era Tour. Oh my God, I hope you have so much fun. All right, let's do the monthly goal check-in, which is, come on, where is it? Here are my goals for June. If you want more details about what these actual action steps are, most of them are relatively self-explanatory. But obviously my goals video goes through all of these in depth. And then each week on the live, I share with you which ones I've done. I haven't done any of my one-time steps, but I've scheduled 3 of the 4. The other thing I wanted to point out is this month I decided to go ahead and like not worry about that first week. I typically am the person who starts that week. Like I would rather start the week of the first, kind of no matter what it looks like. But this time, the first was only 2 days. It was the first and the second. It was a Saturday and Sunday, and we had visitors in town. So there was no way I was like kicking off my goals. So I just took a gray highlighter and crossed that week off in the weekly and the week off in the daily, and then really started yesterday. I've already Monday. What day of the week is it? I don't know. So I finished a couple of my weeklies, and then you can see I made a little bit of progress, but already missed some of my dailies. And that's what happens. But what I want to remind you is that it's okay to start late. And like, what does late even mean? Like late is completely relative, but you don't have to start on the first to have a great month. That's what I want to remind you of. Interesting. Back to the reading. I started the 3rd book and it's a new narrator. I like the new one better. I'll be curious to know what you think. Interesting. Yeah. I can't wait. We'll see. TBD. We're flying this weekend to go to a wedding alone, like Stan's baby. And a part of me is like, what do I do on the plane? Because all my last plane rides have been like focusing on Lila. So I'm like, what am I going to do on the plane? Am I just going to read for the entire plane ride? Like maybe I will finish books this weekend because I'm going to spend an entire plane ride to and from New Jersey reading. We'll see. Made a dental appointment that I'm putting off for way too long. I feel you on that, Heather. Okay. All right. One more thing I want to talk about before we move. Actually, that's a huge lie. I have 2 things to talk about before we move into the topic. Number 1 is that HB90 is open. So if you have been here, you have probably heard me talk about this before, but I want to make sure that I say it again. HB90 is a project management, is really how I view it. It is goal setting and project planning kind of all wrapped up into one. It was created by Sarah Cannon. Her YouTube channel is called Heart Breathings. I know sometimes I say that really fast, and I feel like I had someone in the comments tell me I said it really fast. I feel like I say it fast because I feel like I talk about it all the time. And so I feel like you're probably sick of me talking about it. But then, of course, there's always the people who have never heard me talk about it. And so trying to be more thoughtful of those kinds of things. The course only opens once a quarter. And so I always want to make sure that I let you know that now is the time that you can sign up for the course. It comes with the planner as well. It's the course and the planner. I personally feel like you need the course to understand how to follow the system and use the planner. Don't get me wrong. The planner is amazing and she does describe everything. But as somebody who bought the planner and tried to understand it without the course, trust me, the course is necessary. There's also so many things I learned about lots of things, goals, life, project planning, etc. So highly recommend. I personally use it. Sorry, I keep touching my hair. It is something that until I feel like I'm used to my short hair, I'm going to keep touching it. I use HB90 for my business goals and my business projects. That is what works for me. I highly recommend. I don't personally use it for my goals, mostly because my goals, my personal goals, are kind of habit and routine and regular things. I don't personally find it helpful for those kinds of tasks. It doesn't mean that you can't use it. Sarah uses it for those kinds of goals all the time. You absolutely can. I just don't. I even tried to use it a little bit for project-based goals and it still didn't really work for me. So like personal goals. So, but I love it for my business. So if you are somebody who has your own business, highly, highly recommend. Like that's the person I would 100% recommend it for. She created the course originally for authors and like the project planning, time management side of things for authors. And a lot of her examples are based on writing and being an author because that's what she started as. It doesn't mean that you have to be an author. Obviously, I'm not. And I find it incredibly, incredibly valuable. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. It is open for another like 10 days or so. It closes before the kickoff call, which is Sunday the 16th. So you can sign up anytime until then. One more thing, and I didn't say this on Instagram, and now I wish I would have. You do not need to be able to participate that week of the 16th in order to have it be beneficial. Okay. If you think you might want to utilize the system anytime between now and the time she opens it in September, sign up. You do not have to do it live. That is what I kept putting off about it. I quit my full-time job maybe it was beginning of November. And then I was done at the end of November. So I didn't sign up for December because I thought I've got this. Like I've got this. I do not need another system. Like I will be able to manage my time and effectively be an entrepreneur. So I didn't sign up for it in December. Turns out I was wrong. But then in March, that was the week of the calls was the week I was getting married. And so I was like, well, I'm not signing up this quarter. Then in June, the week of the calls, honestly, I don't remember what I had going on, but I couldn't attend live or I couldn't do the week of. And I was like, forget it. I'm just going to wait till September. The only regret I have is that I didn't sign up sooner. I wish I had signed up like the prior December, just so I had the course in my back pocket. So, yeah. Any questions on that? I'm going to come read the comments. I finished Housemaid and I'm going to be starting A Court of Thorns and Roses. Loved Housemaid. Did you read the second one? Because I would recommend that before you move on. But maybe you meant that you finished the series. I think there's a third one coming out soon too. Calendars are definitely arbitrary deadlines. I'm curious about HB90, but budget is tight, so maybe a future option. Totally understand. If it doesn't fit in your budget, she does have payment plans, but I completely understand. It is a 7-day boot camp with videos and printable planner. It is. That's exactly what I would describe it as. But except for the call on the 16th, the other calls or the other videos are all pre-recorded. So she will send emails like that week of the 16th with like, here's what we're focusing on this day. And here's what we're focusing on this day. But if you do not have the time the week of the 16th to do it every single day, don't do it. Don't worry about it. Still sign up so you have access to it when you have the time to work on it. The 13th, usually she closes it right before her kickoff call, which I saw her say is the 16th. So I think that's what it is. Maybe don't quote me on that. The 16th has a lot going on, y'all. It's Father's Day. it is also, I just posted this on my Instagram stories. It's the Tonys, if you're a Broadway fan. And it is also the House of Dragon, episode 1 of season 2. It's a good day. It's going to be a good day. Okay. One more thing that I need to talk about before we move into the topic for the week. I'm sorry I'm taking so long. Also talked about this on Instagram, but this sparked from a live. So I want to make sure that I bring it up here. A couple of weeks ago, someone asked me about doing a casual hangout meetup in Chicago, and it really ignited me. That plus some other things that were going on in my brain and in my content behind the scene. Like I was consuming content that was talking about things. I was reflecting on things, and then somebody brought it up and I was like, yes, let's do this. I unfortunately, planning so last minute means that there are some other conflicts that I have going on in the month of August. And I don't want to push it into the fall for lots of reasons. So leaning now what's looking like either Saturday the 10th or Sunday the 11th. It will be super casual, likely in the afternoon on the 10th or the 11th. If you are interested, whether you live in the Chicagoland area or you're in the Midwest, if you're interested, let me know in the comments so I can gauge I'm trying to pick a number. I'm trying to pick a space that goes with a number of people. And I don't want to get like too small of a space. And then it's like the signups are gone in like 4 seconds. But then I also don't want to reserve too big of a space. And then we have like this huge space that I paid for that we don't need. So if you're interested, let me know, and then make sure you're on my email list, because as soon as I pick something and finalize, I'm going to send out the information. Community members will get access first, always, 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 to be able to sign up, and then I will release it to everybody else. Now that I'm talking, y'all, I feel like I should have made a wait list specific to this. Okay. I will do that after this live is over. I'm going to make a waitlist specific to this. That way, if you want access to that first, I'm going to make that. So if you're here live, it's not here yet. If you are watching the replay quickly, it may not be here yet. If you're watching the replay at a later date, it might be in the description box. So check that. Okay. Let me take a breath. Ooh, that would be so exciting. Let's do a meetup in the Houston area next time you're here. Maybe. That is so much harder for me to commit to, because when I am in Houston, it is focused on my in-laws, and all of my husband's family lives in Houston, and we're also usually there for Passover, and there's just like so much going on down there that it is so much harder for me to plan than where I live. And then also the help, like in terms of like who else is helping set stuff up. That's part of the date situation too, is I really want my sister to come. And my sister and I have also talked about potentially live recording our podcast there, but I don't know yet. So anyway, never say never to Houston or any other city, but it is harder when I'm there because my focus is my family, my in-laws. And then, yes, happy Pride. It is June. It is always Pride in my house. That flag is there all the time, regardless of the time of the year. Always. Okay, let's talk about moving goals, prioritizing goals. I could not decide what to call this video. Really, the topic or the thing I wanted to talk about was moving goals to the new quarter and what that has to look like for your prioritization. And it really always surprises me how timely these topics are in my own life. I pick the topics. I know I've said this before, but I pick the topics for the quarter, an entire quarter in advance. So I work with a coach who helps me with my marketing and my content strategy. And we have a call once a quarter. And at that call, we pick the live topics for the entire quarter. So like we had our call this Monday. And so all of our all of Q3's live topics are already chosen. So this topic was picked in March, the beginning of March. But yet it is so applicable to my goals in my life right now. So if you're like me, you may have mapped out the whole year. And truthfully, this topic applies for me both personally and with my business goals. Okay, so for my personal goals, I don't necessarily map out the whole year, but I definitely brainstorm way more quarterly goals and actions that I could possibly do for the rest of the year. And here we are. We're 2/3 of the way through Q2, but my June, if you watch my June goals video, I talked about how actually one thing canceled. So that is not totally true. I said that we have either company coming or we're going to be out of town every weekend. I did get one weekend back, but it's also the weekend that we have our community call and it's Pride Fest here in Chicago. So it's not really a free weekend. My mother-in-law was just going to be here and now she's not. Anyways, in my mind, I'm already thinking about which one of I'm looking at them. My Q2 goals, I'm not going to get to. I'm not going to finish in Q2. Same thing with my business goals. My business goals, I'm looking at, I'm like, I did not get to that. Like I didn't even get to that this quarter. And so I feel behind. And I put it in quotes because I've told you before. Sorry, my nose is itching. There's no such thing as behind. You are not behind. You just had unrealistic expectations. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. And this you is me, Laken, telling myself this. It's also me telling you. A little bit of tough love. I am not behind when I look at these things. I just had really unrealistic expectations on what I was going to get through by the middle of the year. And that's okay. That is okay. It doesn't mean that the first 6 months of the year were a waste. It doesn't mean that I am an epic failure. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that the progress that I've made is slower and smaller than I expected it to be. And now I have to make some decisions. Now I have to decide which of these goals am I carrying over? Which of these goals am I letting go of? Which of these goals am I going to repeat? Which of these goals am I making smaller? Which of these goals, whatever. And so I'm going to give you 5 permissions today. Again, the irony of all of this is that I picked this topic 3 months ago, and then I was sitting to work on these outlines a couple of days ago, and I was like, I'm just talking to myself. This is me just telling me what I need to hear as I start to brainstorm. I started brainstorming for Q2 on Monday as well. Or I keep saying Q2. I mean Q3. Like I started brainstorming for Q3. Okay. So number 1, it's okay to repeat goals. There is never going to be a world. Well, that's a really bold statement. I don't necessarily like using the phrases like always, never, like the extremes. Like that's not always the case. Here we go. You know what I mean? Like that's really extreme and unnecessary. It is unlikely that I will always be able to estimate exactly how long things are going to take. Even as somebody who has set goals for however many years at this point, I am going to overestimate what I can get done, which means I'm going to have to repeat goals. So, spoiler alert, when you see my Q3 goals video for both personal and business, there's going to be some repetitiveness. There are going to be some goals that I'm going to repeat, that we're going to do again. It could be ones that I made a little bit of progress, but not enough. It could be ones that I made 0 progress. It's okay. Along that same line, it is okay if goals take longer than you thought they would. It is okay. Your ability to estimate how long a goal is going to take you is not directly correlated with your ability to achieve that goal. Let me say that again for myself. Your ability to estimate how long a goal is going to take you is not correlated with how your success at achieving that goal. That is not a requirement. You do not need to know exactly how long that goal is going to take you in order to achieve it. What you need to achieve it is a breakdown, a plan, committing on the steps, but you don't even know how long it's going to take you. So if it is going to take you longer than you thought, guess what? That's okay. It is okay to let goals go. It is okay to say, that is not a priority right now. It is okay to say, I do not have the resources for that goal at this current time. It is okay to say, I don't want to. It is okay for you to cross something off and let that not be a goal right now. This is me giving all of us permission to let goals go. On the flip side, it's okay to add new goals in. Just because it's the middle of a year doesn't mean you can't add something new. In fact, last month I did a hot seat coaching on I guess maybe my last hot seat coaching, since I've not taken that off of the community, about adding in a new goal. And the crux of it is that if you're going to add a new goal, you have to reallocate resources. So it is going to mean that you either need to cut a different goal or take resources away from another goal, whether that resource is time, energy, money, space, etc. But it's okay to add a new goal in. Now, it could be like Brittany, who shared that she's pregnant. So she doesn't really have a choice but to add a goal, not necessarily a goal about being pregnant, but likely your resources are going to shift. I know you have been pregnant before. That first trimester, the exhaustion is real. My guess is that that is something new. So, it's not a new added goal, it's a new life situation. But it is okay to add a new goal in. Technically, adding in this in-person meetup is an add-in for me. Now, I'm not making it a specific goal. I'm just kind of adding the action steps to kind of some other things. But it is taking up resources, both time and financially for me. And I have to keep that in mind. But don't think just because it's June, you can't add a new goal in for the year. Okay. Number 5, the last one. And again, this one I also wrote for me. It's okay to go with your gut. I have always been a very logical person. I was a math major. I have a very pro-con list, logical brain. And I've always felt like I needed all of the information in order to make a decision. When we interviewed photographers, I had a spreadsheet with 17 questions that I was going to ask. I did not ask them because as soon as I got on one call, I kind of immediately knew in my gut whether this was even a yes or a maybe or a no. And then the maybes, then I was like, I don't need all this information. I just need some big hitter information to make a decision. And ultimately I went with my gut on our photographer. I learned somewhere that I reference so often and cannot find the resource, but I learned somewhere that your gut is just your brain making a decision really, 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 really fast based on all the information that's already in your head. It is your brain taking all the information that you've gathered over the years of your life and calculating a really quick decision and sending that feeling to your gut. And wherever you feel that, we say your gut because a lot of us feel it in our stomach. You could feel it in your heart, in your chest. You could feel it in your head. You can just feel it in your body, in your tension, your shoulders, wherever you feel. It is okay to trust that. In fact, most of the time, that's might be the best option is to just go with your gut. So as you are starting to make decisions and think about Q3, deciding what you're going to carry over, what you're going to maybe add, what you're going to let go of, what you're going to continue with in the next 6 months, keep these things in mind. Okay. If you need, now this is all kind of mental mindset typey stuff. If you need some more tangible steps, we are doing a free challenge. It is going to kick off over the weekend. None of it is live. It's all pre-recorded videos coming to your inbox. Totally free, but it's coming to your inbox. It's going to be a video and a worksheet. There's going to be 3 steps, they're less than 10-minute videos. They're very short, and a worksheet. And these are going to be more tangible steps about prioritizing and deciding what you're going to do in the next 6 months. Whereas today was a little bit more mindset. But if you're interested in joining, the link is in the description box. You can sign up. Okay. I'm going to check the comments over here. Oh, HB90 does close June 16th. Okay, phew. That is my worst problem. I have way too many expectations for myself that I already know that I won't meet. Oh, that's even not fair for you. When one of the things I always try to do at the end of like a goal setting or planning session is look at it and be like, is this realistic? Like, given what I know, the information that I know, the world doesn't blow up. Is this realistic? And if we go into it thinking it's unrealistic, then we're never going to feel the confidence that we can accomplish that. I really appreciate the coaching video where you walk us through project planning and remind us to lean towards giving ourselves more time when we anticipate how long it will take. Yes, Susie, I'm not sure what video that is or what you're referencing, but I do regularly tell you and myself, I would rather overestimate than underestimate. I would rather round up on the amount of time that I think it's going to take than round down. So if I am making a project plan and my instinct, my initial reaction is like, that's going to take me 2 hours, I'll put 3 down just to add a little bit of a buffer. Yes. Oh my gosh, Jennifer. I needed to hear this. I had no idea at the beginning of the year, even in April, that I would be moving, selling my house, and starting a new job. You couldn't have predicted that. And so you are allowed to change your mind from what you originally thought the rest of the year was going to look like. I am in the same boat. Unrealistic expectations. I keep reminding myself that done is better than perfect. And I've been reciting this over and over for several days. Also, y'all, I lost my actual straw for this thing. That's why there's no lid, because I have a big thick straw. But same, like it is, something is better than nothing. This is the first year I'm adjusting goals as we move forward month to month, week to week, and not giving up on annual goals by February. And a big part of this is thanks to our community group support. Oh, this comment makes me so happy, Susie. Thank you. We have to make adjustments. We can't, that is what I failed at in the past. I mean, I had lots of failures. I did a whole video on that, like my goal mistakes. But one of my big ones was setting goals in December for the year and like never making adjustments, thinking that I was going to be the same person with the same life and the same resources for an entire 12 months. Like, no, that's just not, no. Thank you for sharing that. I'll pay more attention to my gut. Sharon, and I did too. Once I learned that, I started paying more attention to my gut. And maybe not paying attention, but trusting it and letting it guide me. Because it also saves me a lot of time, right? In the past, I would be known for like these giant pro-con lists and these, big decision trees. And the time that would take to gather that information and then make the decision. Whereas if I just went with my gut, it's faster, right? Now, I understand and appreciate that there are some decisions that you can't go with your gut on. There's a current decision our family is talking about that I have a spreadsheet for that I'm not going to go with my gut on this one. I'm going to gather the information and make a decision with a combination of my gut and information. But then there are some decisions that are like, you don't need to overthink it. Like I'm trying to think of like a simple, like straightforward example. I don't even know. I can't come up with examples on the fly anymore, y'all. They're bad. That's one of the things that broke my brain with pregnancy. But yeah. Obviously, you know your life better than I do. So if a decision truly deserves all of the details and the knowledge and the information and the time, give it that. But if it is a decision that you find yourself overthinking, just go with your gut. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the topic, on something I've talked about so far? If not, let's move into Q&A time. This is your time. You're welcome to ask any questions that are on your mind. It can be about your individual goals or struggles. And I promise that if you feel like it is too specific to your life, somebody else will benefit from the response. It could be about a topic you want us to just hit the microphone to chat about. If you don't know how to phrase it into a question, you can just put topic whatever the topic is, or it could be whatever is on your mind, something I've talked about that you want me to elaborate on, whatever you want to chat about. Let's talk. I'm trying to see how much coffee I have left here. I talk about this in an upcoming video, but I'm trying to be better about making my iced coffee like further in advance of the live and not waiting until the live to start it, because otherwise I don't finish it during the live and then I'm drinking it further in the afternoon than I want to, depending on what my eating plans are. I don't like to have caffeine past a certain hour. That's one of those random, it's not a hard and fast rule. Like I don't necessarily say like, oh, I can't have caffeine past a certain time, but I try to like keep it in mind. There's probably a lot of things like that. That's very similar. The Lazy Genius just did a podcast episode on like 20 decide onces that she has. Nah. Just finding your channel on Instagram. Went shopping, but the daily notepad is out of stock. Will those be restocked? Yes. So we ordered them and there's an error on the versions that came in. So I am trying to figure out how long it's going to take to get the corrected version. And then I'm trying to decide what to do with the errored versions. So yes, but, and I'm mad at myself for putting things off. And then also just like frustrated in general. The video that goes live on Monday is about the new merch. There's 3 new items plus the restock of the daily notepads. So I'm hoping by Monday I'll have something figured out and they will be up. But I feel like I cannot make that promise. I'm sorry. I'm so bummed. Because I actually have started using them this week again for the first time in a long time. And I forgot how much I love them too. Like I thought putting myself in the box of an hourly planner would be rough. And it's actually been really helpful. So yeah. This is a good point, Susie. My hesitation, I'm assuming you're meaning about like adjusting your goals month to month and week to week, was analysis paralysis, using planning as like procrastination, but weekly and monthly goal check-ins is key to sticking with goals. I love that. I'm struggling with when to refresh or set my Q3 goals in July due to the closing on selling my house at the end of June. I have a financial goal that's dependent on it. Do I plan my goals with the assumption that it sells? So, Jennifer, I would not, only because for me, like my personality is that I would rather err on the side of caution and then be pleasantly surprised if it goes the other way. So I would plan if in the like worst case scenario, which is that it doesn't. And then I would plan thinking that what would my goals look like if it doesn't? And then if it does, then you can readjust as needed. I think the other option though for you in this scenario is, can you wait until like the last possible second to do your refresh? I know you probably are thinking like you want to join the call live and then you're like, well, so that's like my hesitation there. I'm sure that's what is on your mind too. I guess I also don't know what the percentage chance you're speaking of here with closing and selling. Like, do you already have a buyer and it's just a matter of like the logistics following through on the close and like them, not backing out, inspection, whatever. Or is it like still at ground, like square one where nothing has happened? I guess that would also impact, Oh, and yes, a buyer and inspection is done. Okay. Then maybe not. Then maybe I take it back. I think just in terms of answering your question, as it helps other people. I think depending on your personality, doing the worst case scenario can be better. However, if it is something that is still a percentage chance, but let's say it's a really high percentage chance, that's like 90% chance of it happening, then make that plan. And if you have the 10% chance that you have to make the adjustment, you make the adjustment the other way. Morgan, thank you for being my example here. If your name on YouTube is not your preferred first name, I would love for you to include your name in the comments so I can call you by your name. I have a time-related goal that I'm more than likely not going to hit. How do I not be so hard on myself? So I would first ask yourself, is the reason that you're not hitting it, like when you say time-related goal, did you pick it? Like, did you pick the time associated with it? And if the answer to that is yes, then I'm going to go back to this. Where's that pop-up? You're not behind. You just had unrealistic expectations. And that happens. We have unrealistic expectations. Now, if it is a time goal that somebody else set, I would ask yourself, where did that come from? What popped up that may have resulted in you not hitting it? Like, was there something that, like, you didn't have the knowledge to hit it? You didn't have the energy? You didn't have the time? Like, what's the reasoning behind it? The last thing is a little bit less tangible than all the other things I said. And that is just a reminder that when we're hard on ourselves, most of us, we can't like discipline and like punish ourselves into happiness. Like, think about your relationships with other people. If somebody else is like harsh and mean to you, does that make you happier? Does that make you want to work harder? For me, not usually. Usually it makes me want to like curl up into a ball and like climb into bed. And so the same has to be true for ourselves. Like, if we are hard on ourselves, that's not going to make us want to do it. That's not going to make us want to work on things. It's not going to make us want to be happy and like work, like make progress on things, if that makes sense. I think it comes down to treating yourself and your relationship with yourself the way that you would want to be treated with, like, if it was a relationship with a family member or a friend. Sharon, I read through some of your comments and you mentioned that SMART goals are out of the window for the most part. Can you elaborate that? I don't know that I would say they're out of the window, but I would say that for most people, SMART goals do not work. And the biggest reason is that when you consider all of those qualities, you are basing your goals on a lot of assumptions that you may or may not have right. Now, when it comes to like business goals, like when I worked in corporate and we would set SMART business goals, those goals were based on a lot of data and information and history and like tangible things that we could say we could repeat this, right? We could do it again. When you're setting a goal, I'm trying to think of an example here. You might be basing it on things that don't, like, you're making assumptions. And for a lot of us, that doesn't actually work. So if you are not familiar with the SMART acronym, it means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So if you're making a goal that is specific and measurable and time-bound, those are the ones I really have an issue with, is that you are so locked into this box. And then if one thing changes because life, that makes it so that that box is no longer realistic, you just drop it and you're just like, forget it. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to think about this. It comes down to, and I've talked about this before, the further out we go in time land, the less we know. And so we cannot be so specific. when we go further out. And we are talking about a whole year. If you're making a decision about whether it's and when they say measurable, like we're talking numerical goals. And I'll get to that in a second. But a revenue goal, a book reading goal, a pounds lost, whatever it is, that number is so like we don't actually know what that's going to look like. The other piece of that is that not every goal can be measurable. Like it just can't. And I know that some people struggle. You're like, well, if you're not measuring it, then you don't know if you're seeing progress. I beg to differ. I would disagree that there are goals that I have achieved that I see progress that aren't measurable at all. So again, it's not that they're all out the window. It's just that there are pieces of it that when you put them all together, you're making a lot of assumptions. And for most people, when that goal becomes so specific, as soon as something becomes off, then we just give up. And I would rather you leave that goal a little more vague, a little more open-ended, and acknowledge that any progress is progress. And that's more important than hitting this specific measurable timely goal. The corporate brainwash. Yeah. And I understand for some corporate focused goals, it can work. And for some more short-term goals, it can work. But for all of our personal goals, you can feel progress 1,000%. Absolutely. I've always been intrigued by the question, do you consider yourself more motivated by goals or deadlines? I don't know that has to be an or kind of question. I think it depends on the goal. I think it depends on what I'm working towards. Like sometimes I like a deadline because it encourages me to not procrastinate, and I can be known to do that. But again, going back to what I just said, sometimes having a deadline or a timeline on something that's unrealistic, then I'm like, well, I'm never going to hit that. So then I don't do any of it either. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that I don't really have a good answer for this one. Because for me also, I am not necessarily motivated by either of those things. I am motivated by why I want to achieve the goal. And then I break it down and I start on a really small step that feels small. And then I'm motivated by the momentum of the progress that I'm seeing. So if anything, I'm more motivated by results. Maybe. Thoughts on changing back to setting academic year goals versus calendar year goals. Tried calendar year this year and I feel like I need a complete revamp. Great question, Rachel. So I there's no right or wrong here. I think everybody, when they set goals, makes sense for their lives. And for those of you who work in education, or have kids who are at home in the summer, or your spouse is in education, your life very much is dictated by the academic year. Academic goals absolutely could make sense. For me, I think of just this mid-year as it can be a revamp. I could change all my annual goals if I really wanted to. Like you could do a complete revamp in the middle of the year, even if you're setting 6-month goals for the rest of the year and you're going to do it again in December. I think the timeline of it is really just what lines up with your life. And, it's when I think about refreshing our goals, I talked about this a little bit last week. We all try to, I think, put ourselves in these like boxes of timelines that make sense for us. And there was someone I worked with one-on-one who was an accountant. And she was like, I would like to start my annual goals after tax season. Like I would like to start them on May 1st. And that is what worked for her. And her timeline looked very different. Like her timeline in terms of like her year looked very different. And that is what worked for her. That is when she felt the need to refresh and revamp her focuses and her priorities. If you feel that now, do it, take it. And then you can decide in December if you want to do it again and do it every 6 months, or you can decide like, no, these goals feel good and I'm going to keep working on them for another 6 months. I think you won't, this kind of goes back to going with your gut. You won't know what works until you try it. And so if that's what you're feeling, go with it. Ride that wave. I appreciate that New Year calendar and the academic calendar for refresh. I just need to stay away from those shiny new July planners. Yeah, I feel that. I'm so overwhelmed and overstimulated that I'm moving into daily goals at this point. I'm hoping to build momentum by doing this. I think that's a great option. Every day is a fresh start. Every day is a new day. I think the other thing that can sometimes impact the overwhelm and the overstimulation is the mindset of trying to do it all and trying to do it all right now. We cannot change everything on day one. We cannot start all of our goals on the first day and expect them all to stick. When we do it that way, our brain lumps them all together. And then when we don't do one, we don't do them all. So I would recommend, if you're going to do it that way, that you start with one at a time. So what is tomorrow's one daily goal? And then you work on that one thing until you're ready to add in another one. And then you add in another one and make them so small that it feels almost silly to focus on them, but it will sustain you and you'll be able to continue that momentum. I feel as though I'm more realistic in June and July than I am in December. I think that absolutely makes sense. Have I seen John Acuff's new goals planner? I have not. I did not know if that was a thing. I do still follow him on platforms, but I haven't been listening to his podcast lately because I just feel like it's kind of a lot of the same. But fun fact, I do follow him on Instagram, right? And I saw that on Instagram, he was talking about how he was in Dallas and he was going to Torchy's and he needed like recommendations for a Torchy's order. At the same time, my husband was at a conference in Dallas and John was going there to speak. And there is no cross in my brain that remotely related the two things until I get a text from Sam the last day of his conference. And he goes, have you heard of this guy, John Acuff? And then my brain like linked it all together and was like, oh my God, he's speaking at your event. That's the keynote. He is speaking at your event. Oh, I just was like mind blown. So Sam got to hear him speak. Apparently it was very awesome and very motivating and blah, blah, blah. Now Sam wants to read all his books. I was like, you are late to the game on this one. But yeah, fun fact, Sam got to see him speak at an event. I was kind of jealous. It's on his website. Okay, I'm gonna have to take a look. Y'all know I don't love a flat lay notebook. I'm a coil girl or a notepad, so TBD. Yes, the mindset of trying to do it all. I want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so I go down these insane rabbit holes. Yes, Sharon, you're not alone here. And I have 100% been there and sometimes still fall into these traps. But what happens, right, is we want to see the most, like we want to get to the end and we want to finish the goal. And so we think the best way to do that is to start it all on day one and to do all the steps. So if I do all the steps today, I'm going to make the most progress and get myself to the end. And what really happens is we start all the steps today and we do that for like 3 days and then we give up. And then we never get to the end. And so the best option that works for me, and I've seen it work for so many of you, is you start with one thing. And yes, that tunnel is further away than you want it to be, the light at the end of the tunnel, but it doesn't go out. Ooh, that's a good analogy. The light doesn't go out. It's still there. You can still see it. You can still work towards that. So I know it's not fun to do it one thing at a time and to make super slow progress. The tortoise, not the hare. How can I be motivated to make progress on daily goals? I track vitamins and a specific bill. It's so boring, but it's a priority that I make progress on them. Check marks. That is what motivates me when I'm doing something like this is I get a check mark every time I take that vitamin. I am not above of bribery and celebrating when you hit certain milestones. So most of the time, if I'm going to recommend that you celebrate, I'm going to not tell you to do it every single day. I'm going to say when you do it 10 times, and that might take you, like it might take you 12 days, it might take you 15 days, it might take you 20 days. Now, if it is something like a vitamin or a pill that you really, really, really do have to take every single day, like your health requires it, then you make it a daily goal. And when I do it 10 days in a row, I'm going to go get a fancy coffee. When I do it 20 days in a row, I'm going to go get a new book. If you are trying not to spend money, do it with episodes of TV shows that you're excited to watch. Do it with a new book on your shelf that you're excited to read. Do it with a nap that you're excited to take, right? I have a whole video on celebrating and ideas of when and how. But know that those daily goals do add up. For me, it's a daily check mark, like somewhere I get that check mark that day in that moment, and then a reward once I've done it a certain number of times. Okay. Y'all have some good questions. I cannot believe that it's already time to wrap it up, but let's wrap it up with our final question. Where is it? What is the one thing that you are going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What is the one step that you're going to take that you're committed to making progress on your goals? It doesn't have to be huge, but what is the one thing that you're going to do? I forgot to edit mine, so it has last week's on it. Let me think of what mine will be. I have lots of things on my list, y'all. What's the one I commit to? I hope you can't hear my my tiny human. This is also a good suggestion. Stack it with something else you're doing that is fun, like a favorite drink or something similar. Yeah, go buy an iced coffee in 10 days. I love that. A big checkmark junkie over here too. And I know that that doesn't motivate everybody. I know some of you are like, I'm not motivated by a checkmark. That's fine. Find another way. You can find another way for sure. Earning an episode instead of binging. Yep. I also just do it with new ones, right? So like I get to watch the new SVU when I do XYZ. Check in with your finances, get back to your morning habits, write it down, price check, research pharmacies. Okay, you can hear her. Sorry. She's getting restless out there. Make the list of summer tasks. Put your house back together so you can refocus on your June goals. Practice your keyboard. I love that. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up before you head out, I would greatly appreciate that. And if you're new here, click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. See you next week.